proud of the euphoria of the nation's 61st independence anniversary, Nigerians are greeted with another big event in the economic landscape, the presentation of a 2022 appropriation bill by President Muhammadu Buhari to the National Assembly. The 16.39 trillion naira budget was dubbed Budget of Growth and Sustainability. Out talking diversification, the mantra of diversification resonates louder, especially at a time like this that the nation needs all available revenue to fund the budget deficit of 6.2 as presented in the 2022 budget plan. And one sector that economic watchers prospects for huge returns is tourism, an area which Nigeria is significantly endowed. These will form our focus today on Business 24. I am Comfort Amodu, and trust our segments is also part of this package. We'll bring that all to you right after this break. I'm Comfort Amodu. All right, let's talk the development in the world of business, finance and economy as the 16.39 trillion naira appropriation bill for 2022 fiscal year has been presented by President Muhammadu Buhari to the National Assembly, and it is dubbed Budget of Economic Growth and Sustainability. Shike Olaipinaye gives us an overview of the budget.
President Muhammadu Buhari, standing in high spirits, presented the budget proposal to the joint session of the National Assembly. Defense and security received top priority in the 16.39 budget proposal, predicated on $57 per barrel of crude oil at an exchange rate of 410 naira 15 kobo to the US dollar at 4.2% GDP and 13% inclusion rate. President Buhari said the budget, which has a fiscal deficit of 6.2 trillion naira, will be funded by domestic and international borrowing.
Our revenue to GDP ratio from about 8% currently to 15% by 2025. At that level of revenue, the debt service to revenue ratio will cease to be worrying. Put simply, we do not have a debt sustainability problem, but a revenue challenge which we are determined to tackle.
One aspect of note in the 2022 budget plan, the president noted, is the fact that it is the first to be gender responsive.
The 2022 budget is also the first in our history where MDAs were clearly advised on gender responsive budgeting. These are part of critical steps in our efforts to distribute resources fairly and reach vulnerable groups in our society.
The draft budget document presented, however, did not include a breakdown of the budget plan, which will be presented by the Minister of Finance afterwards. Senate President Ahmad Lawan, who earlier addressed the gathering, advised zero allocation to underperforming MDAs and harped on the need to explore other sources of revenue to fund the budget. Speaker of the House of Representatives, Femi Gbajabiamila, reiterated the lawmakers' stance on thorough accounting from MDAs. He also explained that the final documents will capture several recommendations by the lawmakers. Meanwhile, the lawmakers commended the president for early submission of the budget proposal, which will provide them ample time for the consideration and passage of the budget before the end of the year to sustain the January to December budget cycle.
We believe in the coming weeks we will get you to understand more on the breakdown of the budget proposal as we do sectoral breakdown. Now, talking diversification, one of the major economic strategies of this administration is to take the country out of its oil revenue base, which contributes well over 80% of revenue, in spite of its vast economic endowment, to diversify to other sources of revenue generation. In this report, we take a look at Nigeria's tourism sector and its prospects.
According to experts, tourism over time has become the mainstay of many economies of the world, serving as a backbone upon which service sectors thrive. The benefits of tourism cannot be overestimated, as it provides higher returns on investment, enhances employment generation, generates revenue to finance infrastructure development, and generally increases citizens' welfare. Tourism helps prevent capital flight, especially when associated with overseas travels and holidays, and very importantly, tourism remains a viable source of foreign exchange earnings.
One day, we will not be able to sell oil again because the oil has either finished or the people who were selling the oil to will not use oil anymore, or they will use alternative sources of energy. Tourism will never finish. Tourism will never end. So why not invest in something that you know the growth is inclusive and the potential is explosive?
Nigeria is endowed with vast tourist attractions spanning across the country. Let's take you through these fascinating sites. In Ogun State is the unassuming Olumo Rock, the breathtaking Idonri Hills in Ondo State, Ikogosi Waterfalls in Ekiti State, not to mention the Owu Falls in Owa-Kajola, Kwara State, which is the highest waterfalls in West Africa, measuring 120 meters above water level. Other alluring sites include the game reserves, such as the Yankari, sitting on the landmass of 2,244 square meters, and the amazing mountainous plateaus of Mambila, Jos, and Obudu. Nigeria's rich and diverse cultural heritage, coupled with her tantalizing cuisine, no doubt hold beauty lovers from far and near spellbound. This viable sector, however, seemingly receives less attention in Nigeria, with its potentials not fully harnessed. Tourism and tours consultant Prince Iko Sajari believes that if Nigeria's tourism potentials are maximally explored and harnessed, this will contribute immensely to the country's economic growth.
Tourism all over the world is what brings food to government. Nigeria as a country, we all believe we just have a focus, let's make from just the one cow, which is wrong. We should diversify. We can be great. I travel a lot. I know the amount I spend on tour. They understand? So if we can be able to put those things, they are in Nigeria. We have good locations. So there are many ways government can develop it, but we've not been able to have a think tank that can bring out the best in whatever we're doing.
He also maintained that there is need for interagency collaboration and synergy to bring Nigeria's tourism sector to its rightful place.
Tourism has gone beyond manual. People look at the technological base of development of tourism. We've not been able to enhance that particular part, and we must be able to bridge all sectors together.
Some opened that many countries of the world, like South Africa, China, Kenya, Mauritius, among others, have boosted their economic growth through tourism.
We are looking at dance and the music and all that performative in a way that they should speak to the present and the future.
We are looking at, introducing at the National Commission for Museums and Monuments different concepts and perspective to our cultural display.
while recalling the days of the Calabar Festival in Cross River State and the revenue generated. Tourism enthusiasts advocate the reawakening of such events to boost tourism in Nigeria.
When a country decides to develop tourism, it gives majority of the people the opportunity to be part of the society.
They also appealed to the federal government to create an enabling environment that will not only improve Nigeria tourism sites, but also attract foreigners and investors into the country.
We had a chat with the Director General Nigerian Tourism Development Corporation, Folorin Shaw Koka, who gives more insight into the prospect of Nigerian tourism for economic growth and how that critical sector has fared through the period of the country's existence as an independent entity. Sir, thank you for joining us on the show.
It's a pleasure to be back.
Okay. Now, Nigeria is 61, and the nation has gone through different stages of growth and development over this long stretch of the independence. Now, in all this, where is the place of tourism?
Nigeria is 61. Imagine a 61-year-old man. I'm 56 years old, and I know what I recall over my 56 years of development. I know the hotels that existed, the airports that existed, the airlines, the restaurants and bars, the cinemas, even the types of transportation that existed 61 years ago. And I see how far we have come. We need to look at what we have achieved and stop being so mean to ourselves. Nigeria has developed. Nigeria has grown tremendous businesses and industries that other countries around us have not grown. But are we where we want to be? No. Can we do better? Yes. What are the things that have hindered us from achieving what we should have achieved? The population of Nigeria is not small, 200 plus million people. To cater for 200 plus million people, no matter what your level of organization, no matter what your income is not easy for any government. I mean, look at what's happening in England today. They have fuel shortages. The dynamics that a large population creates in terms of you meeting their requirements is not easy. I will not pat us on the back and say, well done with tourism yet. But we're not too far away from where we need to be. And there's simple things that we need to do to get us on the right track. First and foremost, the laws are old. We're making new laws and putting them on old laws. It's like putting a raft foundation on very watery sand. It will not carry much. So we need to look at all our laws, the new ones, the old ones. We need to harmonize them and make sure that they work. And tourism is a thank you that the environment gives us for when our state of being is nice, when our home is clean, everything is fine. Now, if we're going to compete for this alternative industry that will never finish, unlike oil will finish, or people will stop buying oil, or the relevance of oil will go down. However, tourism doesn't finish. People will always consume tourism assets. It's not the time for us to compete. And I say this to the airlines, to the hotels, to the restaurants, to all the tourism stakeholders. It is the time for us to collaborate. There's a time for IBOM, and I'm speaking directly to IBOM Air. IBOM Air, do a deal with IBOM Icon so that we can buy a package like we buy to go to foreign countries. We can buy one package, one product, one price, easy to digest, and we can start to see synergies. Let the Transcorp Hilton, let other large hotels and the large airlines and the transportation companies come together, create packages. It is those packages that are easy to market. It is those packages that are easy to digest for the consumer. And it has to be bite-sized. It's not luxury we're looking for. We're looking for a break. COVID has dealt the whole world a global blow. Nobody has an advantage. We have all suffered. Dubai has no advantage over me right now simply because COVID has stopped everybody going around as they used to. So this is the time for us to do some housekeeping. Look at some of our events and see what, how we can reimagine, not rethink, reimagine life in a manner that is COVID compliant and is tourism promoting. We have been through the House of Representatives, we've been through Senate, we've been through the public hearings, we have gone as far as the presidency. Assent was withheld because there were certain parts of the law we were proposing that was conflicting with the laws of other agencies that existed. That is now being harmonized, and that is what I say needs to be done for a lot of agencies. Our laws need to be looked at and harmonized in a manner that there's no crossing of lane, there's no overlapping, conflicting instructions in the law, and passed so that the tourism that anybody wants to do is seen as a business. You can see the laws that govern the taxation, the regulation, the legislature that is put in place in a proper framework that allows you to actually even go and borrow to invest in it. Right now, it's a touch and go game, and that is what we need. It's, a new law will be like switching on 0803 against 090. It will be a game changer for us, for people to be able to see exit strategies when they bring their money into the country, for us to be able to attract direct foreign investment. We have a tremendous population of very, despite what they say, happy, warm people. Nigeria is a fantastic market to invest. The numbers just change your game. If you make $1 on 10 million people, that's $10 million. Where else in Africa are you going to see that kind of money to make?
Now, what is your projection now that the world is gradually coming out of COVID-19?
I will ask people to be brave now. I will ask them to invest in tourism now. There's going to be a post-pandemic boom, and that post-pandemic boom is going to be in tourism. People are not going to want to go to where COVID mortality figures are high. People are not going to want to go far away where the laws or the regulations may change while you're in the air before you even land there. People are going to go away, but they want to go away close to home. So Nigerians will explore more of Nigeria in terms of domestic tourism. From there, we will see regional in terms of within Nigeria and within the West African continent, or the West subcontinent of West Africa. And then maybe there will be a lot more confidence as things stabilize, and then we will see it more general. But in America, their post-pandemic tourism boom is going to be domestic. Same thing in Nigeria, same thing in Dubai. Everybody is going to want to enjoy a bit more of what is close to home before we start to get the confidence to venture out, overseas.
Thank you very much for your time, and thank you for sharing your thoughts with us on this very important issue of tourism for economic development.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's time for export tips. Let's join Titi Ojo for tips on exports of goods and services.
So today I'll be talking about Incoterms. Incoterm means international commercial terms. If you're someone or a company that is interested in venturing into export or international trade, you need to understand Incoterms. That's absolutely necessary because they're terminologies that, as a buyer or a seller, of course, in that process, there's a buyer and there's a seller. So Incoterms dictates the relationship between the buyer and the seller. It talks about the tasks, the cost, the risks that are associated in that particular transaction. Who is protected? Who does what? Who pays for what? If there's a damage, who covers it? So it's important that you understand Incoterms. And the latest Incoterm is called Incoterm 2020. It was published by the International Chamber of Commerce. So you could actually go online and find, look for Incoterms 2020. That's actually the latest. It talks about the relationship between the buyer and the seller. Now look at this. If you're entering a business transaction, you also need to understand, are your risks covered? Who covers it? Who covers the cost of transportation? Who covers the cost of insurance? Who covers the cost of duties? What's my role in this transaction? Very important. You know why it's important as well? Because you're entering a contract. When you're entering an export contract with your buyer, you are the seller, you have a buyer. If you're entering a contract, then you have to base them on certain Incoterms. We both agree that this is how it's going to be. Very important. Now, let me give you an example of an Incoterm. We have free on board, for example. Free on board is an Incoterm that is used for sea and inland waterway transportation. Now, in this case, the seller delivers the goods on board the vessel that is going to transport the goods. When the seller delivers it on that vessel, as stipulated by the buyer, because the buyer is saying, I want you to use this particular vessel. So you obey that to that very point. And it tells you, this is my port of shipment. You've agreed on that. Now, if the seller gets the products on top of the vessel at that port of shipment, that free on board tells you that the risk of that transportation from that point forward is borne by the buyer. So that's an Incoterm. And we have several Incoterms. And like I said earlier, you need to study them to understand what kind of contracts exist and how you can be protected in an export transaction.
And on Nigerian's capital market this week, bulls ruled. It was positive trading in the first 4 days of the week. Let's join Professor Uche Uwaleke for the review of the market.
Yeah, the week has been quite bullish. Bullish in the sense that all through the week, Monday through Friday, the market witnessed gains, closing on Friday with a gain of 0.11%. And you notice is the positive investor sentiment that has lingered since the previous week. Recall that the previous week, the market gained as much as 3.2%. Quite strong performance the previous week, and that has lingered into this week. This week you find a number of stocks, gaining traction. Stocks like First Bank, Access, Guarantee, that's talking about GITCO, including Julius Berger. We also saw some activity in Zenith, for example, and of course, Airtel Africa. So on the average, you find that market sentiment was positive in the sense that we had more gainers than losers, during the week. I think I see the relative stability in the macro environment, in influencing stock performance. Forex market, for example, the official window of the Forex market on the back of strong oil price, talking about decelerating inflation. And of course, the cheering news that the budget proposals, 2022 budget proposals, are now before the Assembly, which explains why too the markets responded or reacted favorably, to the presentation of the budget proposals. So I would say, in all, it's been quite an interesting week, and I see the sentiments persisting for quite a while, even into next week. So a lot of bargain hunting will continue to happen as long as investors, especially institutional investors, continue to identify stocks that have very good valuations. So my advice is, especially to those who are investing, retail investors, they should always invest with the right advice.
All right, and that concludes this package for this week. We will come your way again next week with another exciting package, do ensure to join the program on NTA News 24, same time. I'm Comfort Amadu. I'll see you next week.